Welcome to a couple of bunkies. So after last year's renovation, I noticed that we had a fairly decent leak coming from the basement sink. Last time we had a plumber come over, I ended up having them install a couple ball valves in our system in order to isolate portions of the house without losing the operation of the whole house. Now I had to secure both the hot and cold on this sink because there was no way of knowing which valve had the leak. I know this is a little bit of a nasty looking faucet, but it's actually really good because if I can just change the little stem inside of it. Now I have a small hobby of collecting old home repair books. This one is one provided by Sears Roebuck Company. Now this is an old faucet, so I'm hoping that I find this configuration inside of it. If this ends up being the case, then I should only have to replace maybe a flat washer and maybe an O-ring. I drain the water out of the pipe by opening both valves. And I love the fact that they added a little drain hole at the bottom of the faucet so that you can drain it all the way. Once the water stops floating, I can go ahead and start to remove the handle by removing the handle screw. And I do the same thing on the other side. On this tap, the stem was threaded, and I could take it off with a crescent wrench. Normally you would have to take off the lock nut or the packing nut. And I do the same thing on the other side. So immediately I ended up finding the issue. The flat washer was missing a portion of the washer, and it was fairly deformed. Even though the other washer didn't look too bad, I'm going to change out both of them. In order to remove this flat washer, I have to remove the retaining screw and then remove the washer from the stem cup. Now I'm going to take this washer over to the hardware store in order to get a perfect match. The assistant at the hardware store suggested a 1/4 beveled faucet washer. Now I insert the washer into the stem cup and then tighten the retaining screw. Now that the retaining screw is installed, we can reinstall the valve stem and tighten it with a wrench. Now I can start the water supply and see if I have any more leaks. Once I realize what's going on and I close the valve, everything looks pretty good, except for a wobbly spout. While I was at the hardware store, I also picked up a small screw in order to fit inside of the bleed hole at the bottom of the faucet. Now I can reattach the handle screw. Again, closing the valves and bleeding the tap. Even though the right valve wasn't leaking, I'm going to go ahead and replace the O-ring anyways. Just copying the same steps that I did for the other side. Both of the washers on the stem have been replaced. Now I'm not sure if you can see this on the camera, but we're getting quite a lot of leak out of the swivel spout. So I'm going to try to tighten the spout nut on the swivel spout, because the swivel spout seems to be very loose. But I find that I need to remove both of these nuts for the cold and hot water. So I'm going to have to secure the water again. So I start by removing the spout nut, because for some reason, no matter how hard I tightened it, it wouldn't seal against the O-ring. So I loosen it up just to find out what's going on. Now the spout nut is stuck on the swivel spout. So the only thing I can think of is rotating the swivel spout, thinking that it might be threaded. So in order to undo it, I need to go ahead and take off that other nut. Now I can rotate the swivel spout until it unthreads. As I hope you can see, the spout is threaded as well as the nut. I found that the O-ring was okay, and the spout just had to be tightened onto the O-ring a little bit more firmly. So I spin the swivel spout back into place. Once the swivel spout felt snug against the washer, I tightened the spout nut. Now I can reconnect the hot and cold water. And I open both taps in order to bleed the water out. Now I can test and see whether we have any more leaks. After the valve had stopped dripping, I waited a few days and everything was nice and dry. I'm going to add a couple unused images from the book for anybody that needs to have some reference. If you enjoy this video and other how-to tips and tricks, consider subscribing to this channel. One little click from you can mean the world to my family. Thank you very much.